Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots of big stories that are breaking this morning. We're taking a deep dive to start with into the economy and what could be a perfect storm of a number of troubling storm clouds on the horizon. So we'll look at that. We've also got Senator Bob Menendez, of course, indicted again for corruption, has a pretty incredible excuse for what he says is going on. And at the same time, and this was a little surprising, Nancy Pelosi actually calling for him to step down. So we'll bring you all of that. We also have some updates about Governor Newsom and clearly positioning himself. I don't know about for this presidential election, but for the future.
For something.
Making moves. Yeah. He has agreed to that debate with Ron DeSantis over on Fox News. So we'll talk about that. Also making some interesting legislative choices and earning the ire of a powerful labor union in the state. Saagar's got a UFO update for us based on a Michael Schellenberger report. So he'll bring that to us. And we also have a really interesting story here about two podcasters who are hoping that Joe Biden will save their show. We'll give you all of those details. Also excited to be joined by Robert Weissman. He's an expert on government corruption. Gee, wonder how that could be relevant. He's out with a new book.
A great topic.
Yes, just happened to work out that there was a little bit of government corruption in the news that we could peg this to. But before we get to any of that, remember, guys, this is a debate week, and so we've got some big plans for you guys.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got the debate special. It is planned for everyone. We will have one preview that will drop tomorrow. There's also going to be a normal counterpoint show for everybody. For premium subscribers, that preview will actually drop later on today, and we will have a very special show for everyone on Thursday. So we've got a lot of fun graphics and things planned, post-game analysis. If you can help us out, as we said, it's extra production, so extra cost to us. You can sign up at breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber. As we said, we'll get the early drops and all those other things. And also, everyone, I just want to say, I know we've been having some issues with Spotify. That's really on Spotify's end over the last couple of days. We're working on it. I know how difficult it is, all the processing nightmares with YouTube and Spotify, but unfortunately, look, we are at the mercy of these big corporations. But as we said, we heard you. We are absolutely working on it, and we take it seriously. I know how much people want the show immediately on time. I'm the same way, so I would get annoyed
messages
as well.
from my parents.
I know.
It's a little unsettling that they watch the show every day now.
I feel the same way, but that's how my mom checks up on me.
All right, let's start, though, by taking a look at some of those potential storm clouds on the horizon for the economy. Put this up on the screen from the Wall Street Journal. They had a good report. The headline here is U.S. economy could withstand one shock, but four at once. They outline 4 different potential factors that could have some level of impact on the economy and are asking the question, okay, on their own, we could withstand each of these, but if you put them together, what will the impact be? The first one they highlight here is the auto worker strike. If it is prolonged, if it ends up hitting more plants than it is right now, that could shave some small amount off of growth. You also right now have the threat that we've been talking about here of a lengthy government shutdown. Looks very likely that the government is going to shut down next week. The question is, how long does it take for them to come to a deal? Obviously, that could have a significant impact on the economy as well. The other thing they point to is we are facing the resumption of student loan debt payments. That is quite a significant one. You have a lot of Americans, millions of Americans who are going to be having to put out, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month to service those debts. That has been on hiatus for quite a while. This comes at a time also when Americans are increasingly stressed in terms of their debt load, in terms of their credit card debt, also in terms of, the interest rates that they're facing on auto loans, home loans, et cetera. The other thing they point to here is rising oil prices, which obviously hits American consumers extremely hard. And Saagar, the other one that I just sort of briefly referenced here that I would add, putting a 5th level of, shock into the economy is the high level of interest rates.
Yes.
And the fact that the Fed has signaled, while they've been holding rates constant, that they could actually hike rates again in the future. If anything, that hangs over the economy more than any of these individual threats they're pointing to.
I mean, we just have 4 simultaneously immediate assaults on the American pocketbook, on top of the systemic factors that we already are destroying so many people. Let's go ahead and put this one up there on the screen. The monthly mortgage payment is actually at an all-time high at $2,300. The overall mortgage payment in March of 2020, for example, was only $977. We currently have the lowest housing affordability on record in the United States, and that's largely because of high prices and because of high interest rates. So people are locked into either their home and they can't move, or their rent is going to be increasing substantially. People always forget that while, yes, gas is a leading cause of inflation, shelter is right up there with it. So you have a major assault right now on American affordability going into the most critical time for retailers in the United States, the fourth quarter, when people do Christmas shopping, they buy a lot of clothes, Black Friday, Prime Day, all these other things are coming up. And if you see even a marginal decrease in their overall level of consumer spending, that is going to impact the overall economy. And each one of these things, Krystal, 0.1%, 0.2%, I mean, these things
Right.
add up. If you have an overall 1% reduction in economic growth, that's a ton, actually, when we're only supposed to grow at 2%. And inflation is, I mean, who the hell knows what inflation actually is? It could be somewhere between 4 to 9%, depending on the way that you look at it. The point, though, is that all of these are not good news as we head into a critical economic time period for the U.S. economy. And then politically, it's also a terrible thing for Biden. So I really think this is it's like 1970s all over again. It's like the only thing that we're missing, thank God, is high unemployment. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, instead, we still have very high underemployment, or we have a decrease in overall real wages relative to inflation.
There's also a lot of global signs of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
China seems to really be in a very difficult position, especially with their real estate sector. Europe also has seen growth slow much more significantly, and their economies have been struggling a lot more than ours has. We have actually been, outpacing the rest of the world in terms of the strength of our economy, quote unquote, strength of our economy. So when you see those sorts of global factors too, that's another thing to weigh on you to say, okay, well, is some of that coming here as well? Are we going to be facing the similar struggles that other countries around the world are? Just to dig in a little bit more on the debt situation for Americans, which has been exacerbated as the pandemic era programs have all gone away, as interest rates have been on the upward swing to try to deal with inflation. But at the same time, you have inflation, which is also making things so much more expensive and forcing Americans to take on more debt. We've already covered signs of stress there, the fact that credit card debt has hit over $1 trillion for the first time. But we have another indicator that Americans are feeling stressed in terms of their personal finances. Put this up on the screen. You now have credit card losses rising at the fastest pace since the great financial crisis. So what CNBC reports on here is the fact that Goldman Sachs is predicting credit card losses are going to continue to climb through the end of 2024, early 2025. Very unusual that these losses are accelerating outside of an economic downturn. Credit card losses currently stand at 3.63%. That is up 1.5 percentage points from the bottom. So the fact that you have this rapid increase in credit card losses and that it's happening at this kind of unusual time period is really raising a lot of red flags for economists. But it makes sense when you put it in with that picture that I just painted of the fact that Americans were already taking on a lot of debt. They're having to try to deal with high interest rates. They've had the loss of these programs that benefited them. They've had rising prices. And now you add on top of that the fact that student loan payments are set to restart on October 1. According to the Wall Street Journal, that restart could divert roughly $100 billion from Americans' pockets. That's according to an analysis from a Wells Fargo economist. It's the first time borrowers will have had to make payments since March of 2020. And while, this is one slice of the economy, it has been significant enough that retailers like Walmart, Target, and others have been really raising concerns in their investors' calls about what this could mean for spending among some of their core consumer groups. So a lot of uneasiness about what's going on here. And listen, if you're like a normal person out there, none of this is going to be a surprise to you, because even as the top line numbers in terms of unemployment have been relatively strong, we know the way that personal finances have been stretched and stretched and stretched over the past several years.
Yeah, that's right. And so actually, I'm looking right now at the average monthly car payment right now in the United States. New car payment is $728. A used car payment is $530. I mean, that is a lot of money that we're talking about here. That's more than $6,000 a year after tax income that is being diverted just to people's car notes. And so, look, I guess it's a broken record, but it is one of which I think is so important, is that overall the personal financial situation of the average American household is vastly worse today than it was a couple of years ago. And that is going to manifest itself in all sorts of crazy ways in terms of how we spend our money, in terms of how we think about our politics. And it is also why the right track, wrong track number is so high for President Biden, and why his disapproval rating is so high as well. You just can't get around it. And President Biden just does not seem to have the political will or necessity to actually speak to these everyday concerns and to say that I'm doing everything I possibly can in the immediate term to try to get something done with this. And overall, that is just hitting people very, very hard, I think, at a mass, like, sociological and psychic level, which is, it's difficult. And you can feel it right now in the country, I think. You can feel the level of dissatisfaction.
Absolutely. And I think on the political level, you know, I feel like we say this every election, but there's a wide open lane for someone who actually promises to deliver materially for people. And, you know, Biden, their strategy is they're hoping that abortion is still going to be an incredibly salient issue.
Probably will.
Right. They're hoping that, you know, the fact that people hate Donald Trump is going to be a salient issue. I'm sure it will be. And they're hoping that that is going to be enough. That's what they leaned on last time. And look, it worked. It's what they leaned on in the midterms. And look, it worked. So it's not like it's a crazy strategy. But when you're looking at the polls that have Biden at best tied, and that one that we covered yesterday, an outlier that had Trump up by 10, which again, I don't believe. But the fact that you can even have a poll that says that indicates maybe you need to do a little bit more than what you've been doing. Maybe you need to actually have an affirmative economic agenda that is going to deliver for people in the immediate term. Now, I've talked about how the industrial policy and some of these bigger picture things like, you know, his support for labor rights, I think that's really important for the economy for the midterm, for the medium term, and also for the long term, and is going to be really delivering for workers over that period. But we got to talk about the here and now. What have you done for me lately? I don't hear any affirmative economic agenda from, actually, what I hear from Trump is negative because they want to cut corporate taxes and go back to that well and do even more in that direction. From Biden, I just really don't hear any affirmative economic vision at all.
Great economic policy is made where it both provides short-term relief and cash injection, or not even just cash injection, tax cut. It depends, and not in the current term, I'm talking about in the past, but also long-term economic design. I talked a lot yesterday, so I've been thinking about the Kennedy tax bill, which shaved the income tax, but also actually overall boomed the economy from 1964, which made it both an immediate cut, which boosted consumer spending, but provided a lot of the economic growth that we saw throughout the 1960s. And that was at a time of deliberative process where people actually thought about this stuff. They had real ideas, and it was like a time not only to, it was a time where they would both fuse the political reality with design and in the future. And unfortunately, I think we really have lost a lot of that the more that we think about it. And the way that our policy is being designed right now, fly by wire, is so ridiculous and stupid. And that just, you know, comes and want to underscore again, just because we are on the verge of it. We are almost certain now to have a government shutdown. Every person that I have seen, just from a pure timeline level, it doesn't seem possible, Krystal, for them to be able to get out of this. Even if the Senate does pass a continuing resolution, which is able to get through the House of Representatives through some sort of discharge petition and all of that, just from a pure time, like time on the floor. It's September 26th. We're filming this right now. The government funding expires October 1 at 12:01 a.m. That's just not enough time, you know, to pass these types of bills. And that's without any of the political fights that are happening. So that is going to impact the economy because not only the federal government is the largest employer in the United States, but so that just no paychecks that are going out there. But on top of that, there's a lot of other alternative programs that people rely on for the feds, for services, even tourism. Remember last time, like the National Park Service shut down, stuff like that. All of that can bleed into overall economic conditions.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's transition into the way that current president and former president are trying to signal their support for working class people this week. We do have a historic event today with President Biden showing up at the picket line, expected to arrive in Wayne County, Michigan, to join workers there, striking workers around noon today. UAW President Shawn Fain is expected to join him on the picket line. As we said, first time that we know of that labor historians can figure out that a president has ever done this, which I think is a real reflection of the way that the politics around labor, unions, and corporate power have dramatically shifted in just a few years' time and hugely accelerated by the pandemic. So you have Biden making that trek there today. You have former President Trump speaking to workers also in Michigan in a neighboring county, sort of trying to counter-program the Republican debate that's going to be going on. He's going to be trashing the Biden EV agenda. I mean, so far his tactic has been to sort of like trash, quote-unquote, union bosses, but also trash the Biden EV transition and claim that, he's the one who will really help workers because he opposes all of that. So you've got those rival visions. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.